is up? What's happening, people? This is Pastor D. For those of you that may be jumping on for the first time, and man, I'm excited about the opportunity to talk about what we're going to get into tonight. Not that it's the topic itself can be pretty difficult, but I'm glad that we're going to actually have a conversation about this topic. I kind of give the same introduction for those that have, maybe this is the first time you're getting on. As a pastor, mental health is extremely important to me. It's an important conversation. We talk about people's physical health. We talk about people's marriage. We talk about all kinds of things, right? We talk about our grades, all the things we're dealing with, talk about our car, if our car is having issues. And so we provide maintenance for our car. We go get tutoring for our grades. We go get counseling for our marriage and things like that. And then when it comes to mental health, sometimes we just don't talk about it. There's a stigma. We think that, well, people that have, mental health issues are really crazy, all those kind of things in terms that we throw out. And, I'm amazed. I think about when you're throwing out a term like that, somebody who actually is struggling, how they actually feel and how they are probably even more prone to stay silent and not say something because you feel like, whatever, like they did something wrong and just whatever the case may be. So, I talk about mental health often because you cannot be whole until you have all these various areas in order and in place. We've seen that. We have seen celebrities, we've seen athletes, we've seen artists at the top. Seems like they're at the pinnacle, at the top. They get everything you could ever dream of, and yet no peace of mind. And we've seen those same populations end up leaving the earth early, committing suicide. I think one of the greatest examples of that was Robin Williams, just an incredible actor and entertainer, very funny. He started off a stand-up comedy, so he was getting paid to make people laugh. He was getting paid to make movies. So y'all youngins don't remember what's his name? Mork from York. I think that's what it was. Mork and Mindy. Y'all young folks don't remember that, but that was kind of like his kickoff. And man, he was so funny and so comical. And here he was filling stadiums and filling theaters of people that were laughing and having a great time. And then when he got off that stage, apparently the place that he went, the darkness that he experienced was nothing like when he was on stage. And I remember when he took his life, man, everybody was just so like, wow. And so, there's a lot of people that deal with this whole concept of having mental health issues. And we talked about the first week, we talked about just having a general discussion about it. And then we went into overcoming childhood trauma. The first session was with Toria Payton. The second session was Jessica Rodriguez. We talked about childhood trauma. And then we just had a session with Gil Gatsby. Had an incredible session with Gil Gatsby talking about addictions, talking about stuff like pornography and alcohol and drug abuse and drug addictions, those types of things. And man, we got into some stuff. And so, like always, for myself as a pastor, as a minister, my heart is that folks get help. That's the most important thing. So even if I got to be transparent, even if I have to use myself as an example, so that people can relate, so that people have some courage to want to have conversations, I'll do that. And I know that every time I open up my mouth and I say certain things, I always joke and say I'm gonna get kicked out of the preachers club, right? But it really is true. I know that every time I say certain things and I open up my mouth, I do take a chance of somebody saying stuff like, well, how dare you? You're a pastor, you're a preacher, you're a man of God, all these different types of things. And the reality is, if somebody's stuck on that and that's the way that they process and that's the way they think, they can go and kick rocks. I'm here for the ones that really need help. Jesus had the same criticism. Now, it wasn't that he was doing anything wrong, but it was wrong in his days to be sitting down and having conversations and meals with the people that he sat with. He sat with the publicans and the sinners and all this and that, and the religious people of the day said to his disciples, look at your master over there sitting with those people. And Jesus overheard that. He said, man, listen, he said, I didn't come for the people that are well. I came for the sick. You know what I'm saying? And so I believe not only just ministers, but I really believe as a believer, as Christians, we got to remember we once were on that side. We once were considered the sick or whatever you want to call it. So we got to be a physician. We got to be like Jesus, the balm of Gilead. We got to bring healing and wholeness to people. And that means that sometimes we got to be transparent. We got to open up. We got to share things. We got to be willing to show people we're human as well, and show people that, hey, God can do it. God can bring you out. God can bring you over. And of course, we know that that's the ultimate answer, as always. So we're talking tonight about depression and suicide prevention. Oh my goodness, what a topic. Oh my goodness, what a topic. Listen, I didn't get all the stats, and I if I said the stats, it wouldn't change. I think we all know that, there's a lot of folks dealing with depression, a lot of people committing suicide. We're about to celebrate Memorial Day, and when I say celebrate, we turn it into this festive barbecue, but really it's a time to honor the men and women that have sacrificed their lives for us. And so, I'm saying that because in the veteran community in particular, I think the stat is like 22 or 23 veterans a day commit suicide. So, there's all kinds of stats out there that would talk about depression, to talk about suicide. And the reality is this: regardless of where you've been, regardless of where you were pre-pandemic, man, listen, in that pandemic, it exposed some things, and it caused us all to pray harder and to trust further and to make some adjustments and all that kind of stuff. And every preacher that you saw doing an online service, and every preacher that you saw smiling on that camera, I guarantee you they listen, just because you smiling doesn't mean that you're happy. Smiling does not mean that you're happy. That you can fake a smile. You can front a smile. And there were preachers and there were pastors, man, smiling on that camera, doing that online service, but stressed out because they had a mortgage on that building and a mortgage on that church building, an empty building that they had to pay for. So even if you were at a certain place, when the pandemic hit, it really kind of exposed some things, and people that maybe had never really dealt with a lot were dealing with a lot when it came to that pandemic. So, with this whole topic and conversation about depression and suicide prevention, it's so key, so important. And even as I was preparing for tonight and giving it some thought, my mind was all over the place, to be honest with you. There were so many things and angles, and start here, start there. What about this question? And really, that's where I want to start tonight, with the fact that when folks are in that place of depression, when they're in that place of considering suicide or whatever the case may be, that's one of the issues. So many thoughts, so many things, so many things going through a person's mind that can't even rest. Some people commit suicide because they're trying to find rest. Mine's all over the place. So I want to get into this, and I'm not going to talk about it by myself. I have somebody that I've known his whole life. And I watched this young man grow into a man, and to see all that he is, all that he's accomplished, all that he's become, and yet know that it wasn't easy, that he's had his own moments. There were certain things that he was going through I had no idea that he was going through. As a matter of fact, there were certain feelings and thoughts and emotions that he had that I had to read. I actually read it in an article. When I read it in an article, I realized what he was dealing with, what he had gone through, what he had overcome. And I was just grateful, to be honest with you. I was grateful to the Lord that he got over that the Lord brought him through that, because he very easily could have went in another direction. So I'm not going to do this by myself. Like I said, I got a guest. I got a very special guest. I love this guy. I love this dude, and just excited about his future, things that are coming up for him. Really excited about it. Grateful for everything that God has allowed him to accomplish, but I know that there are greater days ahead. But this young man has become now an advocate for this conversation, I definitely wanted to bring him on. So without further ado, we're going to bring on the GOAT. That's the nickname I gave him, the GOAT himself, my son, Josh Woods. Hey, what's up, man?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. Of course, this is special for me. Even though I've been doing these couch times, of course, this is always special to talk to you and spend any kind of time with you, especially on a platform like this,
Hmm.
because it allows people into certain conversations that they may not hear. Certain things that just see you and I together in a different light, and I think that it brings the human side to this. Our picture that we have of you, or the promo that we have, is you, a photo of you at UCLA. And I was looking at that photo, and I look at so many of your photos so often. I think about how you have experienced the highest of the highs. I mean, you have
Hmm.
experienced that fight song, and you running out to the field. You've experienced, sacking quarterbacks and all that kind of stuff, getting interviews. I mean, just all kinds of things. Experience flying all over the country, all that stuff that most people will never ever experience. And I'm sure that there were, thousands of people in the stadium wishing they could be you on that field, but not understanding what it costs to be you. So
Yeah.
let's talk about some of that stuff, man. Let's really talk about because you've been an advocate not only for mental health, and we'll talk about how we kind of got to this point, how you got to this place, but even what is it cost? What did it cost to be you?
Um, a lifetime of hard work and sacrifices. Everybody wants to be a star athlete and be on, posters and billboards and advertisements and promos and lead a team. I think every kid dreams of that as a child. They understand that, like, what price and what responsibilities come with that. So, I mean, the waking up early, the extra hours of film, the extra hours of training, the extra lifts, the um, extra meetings, being a leader, the extra, there's so many extra things that came with it, and you don't, the fan will never see or understand, what we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis just to make it out that tunnel. And yeah, I mean, it piles up and could take a toll on you.
I didn't understand it until, as a 17-year-old, you you gave up the second half of your senior year in high school. We just talked about a little while ago, and talking about, the senior day and this and that. You gave all that stuff up, and you left high school early, and went to UCLA as a 17-year-old. I mean, you were a kid, you were a baby compared to, I mean, like grown men, right? That were really
Yeah.
experienced. You had, a guy or two that had a family, all that kind of stuff. And
22, 23-year-old.
yeah, that had families, right? And you basically had to step into this grown man world, and you had to, as a 17-year-old, take all the media pressure and the criticism and all that stuff. I didn't realize the weight of it until you went away.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, I remember when your baby sister John had just been born about 2 weeks before you had to leave. And I remember how difficult it was for you I remember you were sitting there holding her, and how difficult it was for you to say goodbye, because you weren't going to get all that time, that everybody else was
Yeah.
getting to enjoy her. And then I remember just like hearing your schedule and not hearing from you for days and stuff like that. And just like what you're talking about, early in the morning, getting up, getting treatment, this, that, film all day long. As a freshman, mandatory study hall. So basically from before the sun is up to way past the sun goes down, your whole time is filled. While
Yeah.
maybe the average college student, yeah, they're studying, but they're also partying, they're doing this, they're doing that. I didn't realize the weight of it. I didn't realize the weight of it. I didn't realize the weight of it until I was part of some of the UCLA fan groups. And I would watch the way that they talked about players, and the way that they talked about these athletes, and the way I would even say some certain things they would put in there about you. And I would begin to think, man, these are kids that you're talking about. Right. So all of that pressure to be number one of the top academic schools in the country, right, where it's very
Mm-hmm.
demanding, right?
Yeah.
To be prime time, onto all this and that. Man, what was that? What was that? What was that? That when you talk about you said it could take a toll on you. Talk about that.
Every day the best is expected out of you. when it comes to sports, you're competing with top athletes, the top of the top athletes are, in the country. Everybody was the big time player at their high school. And then you're also getting the same thing when it comes to class. You're going against the top. You're competing with the top of the top when it comes to the smartest kids in the country. Everybody was the valedictorian of their school. They were the president of ASB. It's like all the accolades of like, it seemed like the perfect student and the perfect, kid coming in, because UCLA is the most applied to school in the world. So they're taking the best of the best. So you got to think you're going against the best of the best in the morning at that practice, at that workout. Then you're going to go to class and compete against the best students. And you got to think we're doing both at the same time when the students are just keying in on the academic side. I mean, there are those that have to get jobs and, have to really grind it out. And I have a lot of respect for those people. I've had a lot of friends that had to do that. But on the student athlete, it's just so many hours that your life just turns into it's like clockwork, like a schedule, like a cycle where you just, sometimes it's like your body is just going, like you're just on the hamster wheel going. And it just seems like every day is the same day. You're busy, you're tired, and you're just going, and then you kind of become like a robot, like where you're not thinking about other things. Like, you're not thinking about, you don't have time to think about like what's going on back at home, or how am I feeling about, long-term things, or you're just trying to get through the day. And it's like, get through the day, then I got to do same thing tomorrow, like get to the weekend and then do it all over again. So, I mean, it's a strain physically, it's a strain mentally, and then it's a strain like psychologically and emotionally. And like you said, like I was so young going in, where, I mean, for a lot, I had imposter syndrome when I first got there. Like, I didn't feel like I belonged. Wow. I felt like I'm seeing some of these guys. I'm like, I'm still like a kid. Like, I'm barely over 200 pounds going against one of the guys was like 6'9", 330. And like, what do you physically want me to do? Like, he's like 22, 23 years old. That's a grown man. Like, I can't compete with that. And then the same thing, I'm going to classes with these other students that are going to be the best engineers and the best, doctors and all these other things in the world. And it's like, how can I compete with them on this assignment when I had to go to sleep and wake up at 5:30, 6 a.m. for this practice this morning, had to hurry up, grab a bite to eat and run. I'm almost late to this class. Like, how am I going to be in the mental state to be at my best academically in this moment? So that's just on a daily basis. Some of the things you have to face mentally.
You just said something, and I want you to talk a little bit more about that. About that imposter syndrome, and that's heavy, because I think about this. You were, man. Listen, when I would go down the accolades that you had in high school. I mean, from the sports and the athletics to a 4.3 to a this to a that, All-American. You were an All-American. There were only 3 linebackers in the whole country. You're one of the 3. I mean, just so many accolades, all this and that. And I was used to seeing you so physically dominant in high school. I mean, throwing people around, clowning this and that, stepping over people. And then I remember going to a practice and seeing you go up against those 6'7", 6'9" dudes that were just like huge, and they would just like lock you up and you could do like nothing. Right? So you're seeing that, and then you're seeing like some of these cats, like at the time Miles Jack was there, right? I mean, just a freak of nature. You just happen to be there when a freak of nature is there. You're watching all this. You're watching these big time dudes, being interviewed, this and that. So you talk about this imposter syndrome. And I think the reason why this is important is this. And I'm hoping that folks that are watching are connecting the dots, because this is not an athlete interview. This is a human interview. And so there's people that have imposter syndromes that walk into their office place. Myself as a pastor, man, listen, when I see on social media some of these pastors that are doing it, man, and they got, thousands of followers and this and that, whatever, and I'm struggling I'm looking right, I pay attention to what I'm looking at right now. And I mean, it could be difficult. It could be really difficult and can lean towards some of these really difficult mental places. So when you talk about that imposter syndrome, talk about that a little bit more.
I mean, it's just a feeling of like we always say, but you can't compete where you don't compare. Like, and coming from, like you said, high school, where everything was easy and you can do what you want, you're at the top of the game, to it's like you're going from the mountain from the top, and then you fall all the way back down. What is the story, the Greek, his punishment was to push the stone up to the top, and every time he got to the top, it'd fall back down. He had to go back and do it again. Yeah. And it's like from freshman to senior year of high school, it kind of was that, of starting from the bottom. And then but it's different though, because you're a freshman among other only freshmen first.
Right.
And then you build up to, JV and varsity, or like straight to varsity. But you understand, like, I'm only a freshman, so I have time to develop. And then, but the mindset for majority, everybody of college athletes, like, it's what can you do for me right now? And there's only one team. So you feel like you're getting thrown right into the fire of, I'm competing. I have to compete with the best. Like, and my coaches want me to be good right now. And so it took me a while to understand. I think it was probably a certain point so I came in the spring, and it was just thrown in, and I'm just happy to be there, pretty much. Like, I don't, I was just happy to be there and not really concerned about being a top guy. Yeah, I'm just struggling to, just stay afloat. But going into fall, I thought I had learned enough to contribute. And it's probably like towards the end of camp, I came to a realization, like, like, I'm just not there yet. Like, I'm not what Miles Jack was in that time. And I think I just hit a certain point where I was just like, okay, like, let me just start, like, developing. Let me just start learning, and let me just start, like, trying to grow. And then my time will come eventually. Like, and I think that's when it, like, starting to understand all the extra things that I was missing, and all the extra things that I had to start doing, getting extra meetings with my coaches, and just asking the older players for tips, and just being, like, humble. Like, I mean, early on, it's like embarrassing, I feel like, and I think it takes guys a while to get over that and just go straight into humility. Like, don't worry about being, like, embarrassed or and feeling weak. Just understand that, the growth you have to take. But I mean, like I said, at first it was imposter syndrome, until I got to that understanding, that point of, like, let me just be humble and try to get better.
So, it's funny because now, look, this is the thing. Stephen Furtick was teaching a few weeks ago at the International Leaders Summit. The TD Jakes puts this on, and he talks about the whole time lapse testimony, right? So there's parts that you skip it over, because I remember. So you say you, from the time you went from spring, that's April, to the end of camp, right? That's August, right? So that's a lot of time to go through a process. And then I can remember how frustrated you were when you in August, when you realized that, and it was even told you that you were going to redshirt. I remember how frustrated you were. I remember how frustrated I was, and I'm not even there. Because we're talking about depression, we're talking about suicide prevention. Those are the areas where, those are the doors. Those are really like sometimes the beginning of a downward spiral. So, fortunately you got to a certain point, but what about that? When you heard, okay, you're going to redshirt, which means for those of you that are not familiar with football, he left high school early, and the whole concept was he was leaving early because they saw something in him. They want to get him there early. They want to develop him. He goes through all those months of training and all those sacrifice and giving up his summer and giving up all the senior days and all that kind of stuff. He barely went to prom, all those types of things. He goes through all that kind of stuff, skips all that, and then comes to the end where it looks like, okay, now it's time for payday. Now it's time to be rewarded. And then he's told that he has to redshirt, which means you're not playing. You're not playing, you're not traveling, all that kind of stuff. What was that? Because as we talk about depression, there are people, again, trying to make the parallel. There are people that didn't get the promotion on the job, that didn't get the call back, right? That just, that the spouse just said they want to get a divorce, right? A loved one just passed away. There's those, so really like that moment of disappointment. How did you feel during that moment? What were some of your thoughts? How did you deal with that?
I think it was like San Bernardino 2 days where that's like earlier in August. I'm like, I thought I was better than I was. And like, I went from getting reps to like not getting any reps at all. And like, it's 2 days in San Bernardino during that time. Everybody knows it's, 110, 115, like, and I'm close to home, but I'm not home, like in those dorms, it's hot, no AC, like, just going through it. And I just remember like being with some of the other freshmen there in the same boat and just like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't even know if I want to play football anymore. Like it was like those type of dark days where it's like you contemplating everything, like everything you're thinking.
That's what I'm talking about. That right there, that moment, right? Those moments right there. Talk about that.
I mean, it was just like frustrating where it's like, I mean, I felt like I was one of the guys getting picked on, but later down the line, I understood that like my coach was really trying to develop me, and that's what I'm saying. It took me a while because I mean, we're doing individual drills, and I'm the guy that has to go twice. I'm the test dummy for the drill to go extra, like certain things like that. And then when it comes to the real action, oh, Josh, you're gonna get 4 plays maybe in this whole period, where I was gaining weight during practice from drinking so much water and Gatorade because it was so hot. So I'm trying to get fluids in me, but I wasn't practicing enough to lose that. So like, it's like my whole practice was the warm up, pretty much, like warm up individual drills. When they started like really banging and scrimmaging and all that type of stuff, yeah, I'm just on the sideline. And that work went into, by the end, they're like, yeah, we're going to redshirt you, which was like, at a certain point I understood because how much depth in all the linebackers that we had, and how like it made sense. And I think it got to a certain point where, like you always say, like you and Uncle James always say, like the cream always rises to the top. So, I mean, my advice is the same advice I say to many young guys, like control what you can control, and do with what you have and where you're at, and like good will come. Because I mean, I went to redshirt. They put me on the scout team for probably like a week and a week and a half. And I just took it out on that. Like I gave that all I had. Those were my games.
Right. Wow.
And from then the coaches and the scout, you gotta understand, that's pretty much like a group of freshmen and walk-ons, the young guys, versus the starting offense. And we're supposed to be the test dummies to just look, give them a look and get in the way. But, we don't really know what we're doing. We're just reading a card that tells you pretty much like where to go.
Yeah.
Like it's like basic. You're okay. Go play cover 2. Like it's not even a play. They just tell you like, oh, go do this, go do that.
Right.
And I think I just tried to go all out there and take my anger out there, and give that all I had to where I got noticed. And eventually they brought me back to the ones and twos and really tried to start developing me and like, where can we use this guy? And that's where I made a move to a position that I've never played before. In high school, my coaches tried to tell me that I would need to be able to play these other spots, and I never understood, because in high school I was playing on the outside, and it was so easy. I'm like, for what? Like this is what I do. And then like it comes back later, and it's like I remember literally I'm probably either coming back from a class, because so like during the schedule of the college season, you have practice in the morning, then you have class in the middle of the day, and then you have meetings in the afternoon and at night, and then listen between or whatever. But I think literally I'm coming back from class or something, and I'm passing through, about to go to the meetings and stuff like that, and my coach sees me, and he's like, "Oh, you're moving to Mike linebacker." So I'm moving inside. I'm like, "Oh, you're joking," and he's like, "I'm serious," and left. And then they started putting either they were watching clips or we're watching clips, or they put something up there and was like, he was saying the mic, was like, "Yeah, Josh, you need to learn that too." And I was like, "Oh no, he is serious. Like this is in front of everybody." So then from then I'm just literally like that meeting was the first time ever taking notes for inside. You gotta understand, like I barely played linebacker, then I've only played outside, and then that whole camp and everything, I've only known one position, to getting told that and having to learn it on the fly. Like the game Saturday, you might have to get in, from redshirting to now you got to be ready. So that went straight into, I think I met with my coach after that meeting till like probably 10 at night or later than that, just me and him in the office. And he just spitting so much at me, and I'm like just trying to just write everything down and be able, because I know in the morning we don't have no meetings before that practice. So as soon as that practice comes, I need to be ready. So it's like situations like that where I think a lot of people need to understand is, like they say, you're delayed, but you're not denied. So you need to you have to be prepared for whatever. So work with what you have and be ready, because you never understand or know what situation is going to come up. And if you're not ready, then you wasted all that time. So, wow.
I mean, there's so many things I'm hearing. And again, I guess because I'm a pastor, I parallel a lot of stuff, right? We talk in the business world, we call it transferable skills. There's certain things that you learn and can do in a certain environment that transfers in another environment, even though it's called something different. I'm listening to you talk about these adjustments. I'm listening to you talking about being ready, staying ready. I'm listening to you talk about the script being flipped on you. Let's really pivot, because this is the thing, man. This is the thing, and all you that are out there, this is what y'all got to hear. Things that he dealt with are life situations, because I'm hearing you not only the things that you went through, but I'm also hearing a lot of solutions. And this is the thing. One thing that I taught years ago was this: at the core of depression is hopelessness. Because what happens is when certain things don't work out, when people think right away, or when there is a delay, people get caught up in this place of hopelessness. And the reality is, it worked for you and you were able to overcome. Now, I believe that, of course, you got, the grace of God on your life, right? You have the anointing, you have the Spirit of God in you, right? That you were able to, even if you don't realize it, tap into. But think about how many athletes did not overcome. How many athletes, whether it's football, basketball, any sport, how many students got to that? I remember, I had such a limited, my experience was like totally the opposite of yours. Totally the opposite of yours, from getting recruited by UCLA, but then not being able to get in the academic I think that was probably the most traumatic thing that I went through as a young man. So you got the call, hey, we're offering the scholarship UCLA. I got the call that said, you can't get in. We're not going to give you the scholarship. I remember the downward spiral that I went into. I was 18, man. I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was a kid. And not only was I a kid, but I couldn't talk to anybody about it because up until that point, all the conversations were about, oh, Dominic's going to UCLA. I mean, the school celebrating, my family celebrating, friends, the church, the whole church celebrating. Oh, he's going to UCLA, this and that. Man, listen, when I got that call that I was not going to UCLA, you're talking about depression. You're talking about being embarrassed. To have the conversation with somebody and try to cover it up. Oh, well, yeah, it didn't work out. I didn't even know how to articulate that as a kid, as an 18-year-old. When I watched your interviews, you were so articulate, man. In high school, every time you had an interview, it was butter, man. With me, I couldn't articulate stuff, so I struggled. I remember some self-destructive behaviors. I remember I got this little money and I burned through that money and just being in the dark, sitting in the dark, just going through all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of college athletes, a lot of college students. There's a lot of grown folks right now that are watching this that have been in a dark room for days. So I'm listening to you. I'm listening to how you maneuver through some of that stuff. You talked about getting ready. You talked about even how you just said that you spent hours just with your coach one-on-one, trying to now learn this new place, this new position. When people get caught up in the hopelessness, that place, they don't see a way out. They don't see a way up. And I think about this as we really pivot, people that commit suicide, they get in that place and that's where they stop. And they literally cannot see things getting better. And I'm not just talking about a young man. I'm not just talking about a young woman. I'm not just talking about an athlete. I'm talking about grown folks. I'm talking about there just over the last, I think about last maybe 2 years, there have been two young pastors, youth pastors out of like the Chino Hills area that committed suicide, left behind young kids, left behind a wife, and left behind people just confused. Like, that's a preacher, man. I'm thinking, what what was going on in their head, and so let's think, and I want you to put some stuff together. I remember when you were a junior in high school, you didn't get a chance to play that whole year, right? Because of what happened with everything went on with CIF and all this and that. Then you had two significant injuries. You had your shoulder, you had to have surgery right in the middle of a season. And then you had the most devastating thing happen. The year that was projected to be your year. You were older now, you're experienced, you're going into what's supposed to be maybe your final year. You're a leader of the team. You got a brand new coach. I remember you talking about you're in the best shape of your life, right? And you're at that place. You do what's called the Pac-12 day. You're in the media, this, that, all that kind of stuff. And then you have an absolutely devastating injury that ends your season like that. I mean, how far away were you from the season? How far away were you from game one when you had your injury?
I think it's about 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
So all that time, all that build up, all that, this is going to be Josh, this is your year. And then you had that injury, that devastating freak of nature injury. I mean, just whatever, right? Tore your ACL, MCL, and you had to also have part of your meniscus repaired, right? What were those? We always wish we have happy days and happy moments all the time. But what was some of those moments right there where you thought you were going to play, then didn't because of whatever? What were those moments for you?
It was just frustrating, dark, just uncertain, not knowing. I think the biggest thing when it comes to injury is like not knowing if you'll ever be able to fully recover or like be yourself again physically. I think that's one of the hardest things mentally on an athlete. It's like, can I get myself back to where I was or better? And like I said, with the shoulder, it sucked because that was my first surgery, and I already had a lot of frustrations in that year.
Yeah.
Nana had passed that summer, and but the shoulder, I was already, I was like, okay, I've seen a lot of guys with shoulders come back. Like I wasn't, that was okay. But with the knee, like immediately as soon as it happened, like it just didn't feel. It just felt wrong. And then seeing the reactions of the trainers and then my teammates when it happened
Mm.
was like everybody is rooting for me, and like the guy is no longer the guy. Where it's like,
Mm.
not like I was a superhero, but like a lot of people were like believed in me and looked up to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I am no longer like I've been taken out. I no longer can be that for them right now.
Wow. Wow.
It was just, and then through that whole process, just not being able to walk, and my recovery wasn't going on schedule. There's a lot of delays, a lot of we'll see next week how it's feeling, and um, not being able to sleep.
Mm.
Eventually, like I lost my appetite, couldn't eat for a while, was like getting really skinny, couldn't really I couldn't lift till all the swelling was down, so like my muscle is depleting. Um, and then eventually I just felt like a ghost in the facility. Um, guys, the energy wasn't there no more. I mean, when you first get hurt, everybody feels bad and hopes that you're getting better, but then there's that window of like uh, kind of just runs out. I mean, even with an injury, it's kind of like I'd say like a honeymoon phase. Where
Mm-hmm.
everybody, you feel all the love and you feel all the support, and then you get a certain point where it's like, dang, he's still hurt.
Wow. Wow. You know, you talked about something. You said that because listen, I always say I'm your biggest fan, right? So I'm watching, I'm reading, I'm everything. I'm excited about the season. And you just said something that you couldn't no longer be that guy because you were that guy. I mean, you were
Yeah,
the older guy, you were the leader, right? You guys had a team full of young players. You were the older, you were the leader, you were getting big, strong. I mean, I would see the articles when I'm watching you really turn into like this beast, right? I mean, you were that guy, right? You're going to be the
yeah,
guy in the middle. You're going to be the guy in the middle that led that defense, called the plays, all that kind of stuff, the muscle, all that kind of stuff. And then you said you no longer could be that. Every it's like Superman just went down, right?
yeah,
Um, again, parallel. I mean, there's so many people that are watching. Listen. Even for myself as a pastor, is like, you. I don't know. When you go through something, it's like this added pressure of carrying everybody on your shoulders, right? And you have to be that guy. You almost can't be human, and you can't can't go through whatever feelings, whatever thoughts, whatever emotions. Um, People that looked up to you now aren't saying anything. I remember you talked about that, how just like you felt like you just like you didn't exist. I mean, it was nothing there for you. And
yeah,
even your friends, you had some very close friends that were doing well. Even though the team overall may have not done as great, but you had friends, right, that were doing well. And I remember you even saying that one of your best friends, one of your best friends, Chris, you said that he of course he was there for you and all this and that, but he said, but it came to a point to where he couldn't even relate because he was doing so well, and here you were at home. You couldn't even travel with the team. Home
yeah.
games, they didn't even want you on the sideline because they felt like you couldn't get out of the way quick enough. All that kind of stuff. What is that when you're watching a national television game and you know what you could be doing, right? You know what and that was something I was thinking about as we prepared for this, was for the people that are watching. I mean, how do you deal with knowing that you could be and what you would be and what should be, but it's not? How do you, I mean, what were those feelings? How did you deal with that?
Um, it's, it's at a certain point, like I mean, it's tough and frustrating, and like annoying, and getting mad about it, but at the end of the day, like there's nothing you can do to change that right then. Um,
Hmm.
Football is the show must go on. You're just gonna get replaced by the next body. You just
Hmm.
gotta. I think eventually, like, just using it as fuel. Just when I come back, I'm a show all that shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Hmm.
I'm gonna make it happen.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so yeah,
So so the summer 2017, Nana dies, right? My mom dies, and I remember how hard you took that because you weren't able to be there
yeah,
all those months and stuff. You weren't able to be there for the last, because I mean, from 17 years old until she passed away, I mean, you weren't there. I remember how hard you took it. The first time you saw her the next time you saw her, she was in the casket, right? So I remember that
Mhm.
difficult moment, and that was the same. Then later you get hurt, and then was it that next January when your friend Ty committed suicide? Was it in that next January?
Yeah, that was right after the season.
So that's you became a big advocate for mental health. You went through your own issues, your own things, right? But
Yeah,
then you watch your friend Ty, who was 21 years old, quarterback of Washington State, catch everybody off guard. He literally didn't show up for practice. Coaches were concerned. Sent the police officers to do a wellness check, and then they found his body. Everybody just shocked, right? When you think about everything that you went through and then a situation like that, think about his mom and dad getting that call from the police saying that, your son has committed suicide. You became a strong advocate for mental health. Talk about that. Talk about this because, with athletes, you guys are supposed to be superheroes. Not supposed to have emotion. Not supposed to cry. Not supposed to whatever. Not supposed to feel pain. Supposed to be a
yeah.
machine. Talk about that. Talk about that.
I mean, up until that point, um, I had never really thought about depression, like what it meant. I didn't know what anxiety was. I think at that point, where it made me really start to educate myself, and really really had me this it opened my mind to so much of you know what all this stuff meant and why, and then it hit me like inner, like, okay, like, have I ever dealt with these things? And looking back, I mean, I did. Um through throughout my whole, like, I would say, like, my whole life, but I feel like I remember a lot of times, like, football just give me anxiety, and you
Mm,
know you think it's jitters, but like, that's anxiety. Just the
wow.
anxiety of running out of the tunnel, the anxiety of running on the field, the anxiety of that moment right before the snap, like certain things like that. And then just being um, sad and upset and mad, and you know all these other things of depression, and not, I think before that, a lot of us didn't really know what those things were or why.
Wow.
And so now I just push for it, because I mean, Ty was Ty was the energy guy, the leader that was always smiling and joking and encouraging. That was him. So for that guy to not want to be here no more and actually go through with it, you see how fragile mental health, like people's mental health is, and
Wow.
everything is not as perfect as people might try to make it seem. And you know people are fighting on the daily. So now I just feel like people need to have more grace before judging people's actions. So I feel like a lot of the time people are like, why are they behaving like this? Why are they acting like this? And think that they have all the answers and that they should know and that they can judge and they can talk down on why people are like, you shouldn't be doing this. You should be doing X, Y, and Z. But it's like you'll never understand how somebody feels or why they feel the way they feel until, you're in their head, which is, you can't, So having grace, because something you might go through the same thing as somebody else and they feel a completely different way.
Yeah.
And you might think like, oh, I got over it, so they should too.
My goodness.
I think like with a lot of things, which it's probably really tough, especially like for parents and, because they're supposed to be the ones with the wisdom and think that for the most time they have all the answers. But there's some things that like you don't understand. Like you might you just don't understand, and
yeah. I like I said, there were certain things that you went through, son, that I did not know until I read the article. I remember there was a really big article that was being written kind of like before you were coming back, or maybe it was after you came back. And I was part of that because I talked to the reporter, and they had set that stuff up. So you interviewed and I interviewed. And so of course when the interview came out, or when the article came out, I'm reading the whole article, and then you're talking about these dark moments, these dark days, this and that. Here I am as a fan. It's funny because I think about, like, especially when you're younger, you'd always been bigger and stronger, right? And just like so dominant. And I'm thinking, I'm so excited for the game to get started, and here you are actually having some anxiety. I'm thinking, can't nobody see my son, right? Give him the ball, let him do it, and you're actually feeling that. But that is this whole danger behind depression and suicide. People are carrying these things, and folks just don't realize it. People are leaning upon, being critical, expecting so much of people, not giving grace. Listen, I think about my thoughts. I think about, man, when part of one of the more difficult things for me is, I remember your high school and your senior year and just how we expected you guys to win a championship. And when things weren't going the right way, I remember I was one of the fans, one of the parents complaining and acting all silly in the stands and getting all crazy. The thing that hit me the most is when I heard about Tyler's suicide. I'm like, and so for those of you that don't know, Joshua and Tyler played high school football together. And Tyler got a scholarship to Washington State. Josh got a scholarship to UCLA. While Tyler was at Washington State, that's when he killed himself. So in high school, I remember how frustrated I was as a fan, right? And I remember when I heard about his suicide, I'm thinking, man, what? All that fussing I did, that stuff doesn't even compare to a life being gone. For his parents never to be able to hold him again. For his parents to never be able to laugh with him again. All because he got so depressed and had some issues and just checked out. And like you said, he was the energy guy. He was the hype guy. And this is something I was thinking about, is this. TD Jakes told this story one time about a bridge in Dallas that collapsed. And so when the engineers research and try to figure out what happened with the bridge, there's a technical term called stress. They said that the bridge could not handle the stress. And so the bridge collapsed. And I thought about how many times people rode over that bridge. How many times did people depend upon that bridge? How many times did people take that bridge for granted? How many times did the people, whatever, go that and all of a sudden the bridge can no longer take it and it collapsed? And how many people are not here today because they got to that place, and because we put so much pressure on people, especially athletes, to be superstars, especially leaders to be superstars, people putting leaders and putting pastors and putting celebrities on this pedestal as if there's a cape, like there literally is a cape, not realizing that these people got to go home and they got to deal with that kind of stuff. So for the, you just talked about the grace. For the, what advice would you give to people about loving and caring for people? What advice would you say?
I think it has to be genuine and not judgmental. Because a lot of people are asking how are you doing, but they don't really care how you like. Your answer can be whatever, good or bad, and they're just gonna be like, okay, and then they're gonna go about their business. Because I've seen a lot of people do that. How you doing, but not really how are you how are you feeling right now? How can I help? So really caring and genuine and showing real love. And for the second part is not being judgmental. Of course, you need people in your life that will give it to you real and, raw and stuff like that. But when we're talking about like mental health and checking in on people, however, I mean, you need those aces that are not going to judge you. It needs to be unconditional.
Wow.
And that's one things like why like God's love is like so great because it's unconditional. Like no matter what you do or whatever it is, it's unconditional. Like regardless, He gonna love you. So you need those type of friends and people in your corner, the unconditional friends, unconditional people that give you that love. Where it's like you might, there's days where you're gonna snap on them, or there's days you're not gonna talk to them. Or you might, your actions might be a certain way, but those people that unconditionally like, hey, Josh is just, he might be going through something. I don't know, I still love him. I'm gonna still be there for him regardless. You need those type of people. So, I mean, if you can be that person for somebody else, that is how you help.
Wow. What about now? And that I'm gonna ask Josh this question, and then I will say if anybody has any questions, because we're coming up now on an hour. If anybody has any questions at this time, you can go ahead and kind of put it in the comment section, and we'll pull it up. What advice? And not just, and let me hear this for me. I'm not just talking about encouragement, because anybody listens to you, they get inspired. Okay. They get encouraged. I have, as your father, I have been encouraged and inspired by you, by your story, to watch everything that you've done. Man, I remember your first game back in Cincinnati. Man, just, incredible to see what you'd overcome and to see that you on the field, and then to see what you did, your last year at UCLA. And then we haven't even gotten to everything that happened with the draft last year and all that kind of stuff. Man, we haven't even talked about that moment, and you watching your friends in the NFL and all that kind of stuff. But then they don't see what I see. You still training, you keeping your body on point, and what you just did at this last pro day, the way I mean, it just you're really inspiring. But this is what I need right now. I don't just need inspiration. I need you to get some information. So to the person that is depressed, to the person that is considering suicide, considering checking out, what is your advice to them?
I mean, God got to be your number one. Like I just talked about, like unconditional. Me and my girlfriend were doing a devotional now about like not worrying and stuff like that. And one of the days it was talking about he was building a table or something, and he had gotten towards the end, like unboxing, putting it together, and he's looking, and there was like one screw or something that was missing, and so he's looking around everywhere. He had thrown it away in one of the little bags, and he had, he found it and whatever. And he was like, many of us will trust that a manufacturer in another country will give us all the pieces for a puzzle. Why don't we trust God the same way with everything going on in our lives?
Wow.
And I think for a lot of times that's what gets me through. It's like all these, like, so many obstacles and so many things going on, but it's like I know at the end of the day, like, God has a plan. Like, it might not be my plan, but God has a plan, or that He wouldn't have these obstacles unless He knew I could make them over, or that I will detour and go somewhere else and make
Wow.
things work. And
Wow.
I think that was one of the I forgot what verse that is, where I don't know if it was Paul or somebody talking about like rejoicing in your weakness,
Mm-hmm.
but like rejoicing in your weakness and in the way that because you have that weakness, rejoice in it, because that means God gets to work, and
Yeah.
through your circumstance, God gets to show Himself more, and other people will get to see, and you'll get to give God glory, and you'll get to be an example of what God can do for you. So I mean, like, a lot of the times I felt like that's been it. It's like, I'm going through this, okay, how's God going to get the glory for this one? And it's like I just know, like I said earlier, like, I'm gonna just keep working at what I have and let God handle all the rest. Um, like Bishop Giddens has told me, um, do what you can and let God do what you can't.
Hmm.
So I mean, that is the thing for me. But on this a regular, to somebody that might not have that relationship with the Lord yet, one day I was just jotting down like what mental health is to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, like, mental health is like the weather. You don't get to control it.
Hmm.
You can try to prepare as much as you can for it,
Hmm.
but there's certain elements that you're not gonna, I don't get to control when it rains, but I could bring a jacket with a hood and try my best
Mhm.
to stay dry.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
I think a lot of people, you don't know what's going to come up, but try to prepare and um, put yourself in environments that will best suit you. Like, if I don't like the sun, I'm not going to live in California. So certain things like that, where certain things might trigger you or upset you or um,
Right.
put you in a certain mental state. Um, you prepare and try to go away from those things, or you try to prepare the things that are going to be where your hat to the sun would be, like, what is your coping and your where are your resources, and certain things like that. So yeah, mental health is, like I said, like the weather. You can't control it, but um, you can try to prepare and adapt as best you can.
Yeah. Man, that is so awesome, man. All of that you just said about trusting God, but then even the practical side. I've seen people and I've seen situations um, where literally people, they're on this downward spiral and they're not getting out. They're not getting off. They're not recognizing the triggers, or they're not separating themselves. They're not putting the hat on when they go out in the sun. They're not bringing the umbrella when it's raining. And it's like, the Bible says you reap what you sow. So they continue to sow the same things and get the same harvest, and sow the same things and get the same, and not breaking that cycle, not breaking that pattern. Even when you talked about when you were as a freshman, when you realized that you weren't going to be what you are, you said, first of all, you like the prodigal son. It said he came to himself. You realize, okay, I'm not what I think I am. That's sobering. That's very sobering. So you realize that, and then you begin
Yeah.
to make the steps. And so I think so many people, I love that whole analogy. It's like the weather.
And
I'm
like for some people, you need to be the friend that brings that umbrella.
mm,
I mean,
wow,
like,
wow,
if you can, you're seeing that the rain is coming, and you sometimes you go tell them, like, prepare, oh, it's going to rain today, and you have those friends that it's like, I'll be, it's okay, little rain never hurt nobody, but they might need that umbrella. So sometimes you need to be that umbrella.
right, wow. Let me ask this question: how, and this will probably be kind of my last question. And um, how do you so you talked about, the weather, this and that. How do you create that space? What if you have, I mean, just what if you're in that space and everything from your friends to whatever just is contributing to the depression, contributing to wanting to check out? What's the practical side to just creating that really positive like space?
I think you need to find what genuinely you enjoy and makes you happy. I mean, for me, sometimes like I like being alone and um, you know, watching TV or playing the game or just listening to music, and sometimes it's because you're pushing yourself thin, and sometimes you need to take steps back and you're socialized out, so sometimes you don't need to talk as much, and be the yes person to everybody, and sometimes you have to say no. But yeah, find what makes you genuinely, I think, happy and okay. And sometimes you have to, put yourself before others. Like I said, take steps back and say no. As far as letting people, you always trying to help somebody, help yourself.
Hmm.
Like you say, treat yourself and because
Love yourself.
it's like, yeah, love yourself. You can only pour so much. When you're empty, you're not pouring nothing. So
Wow. Wow.
sometimes you need to refill or recharge because your phone on 5%, is about to die. But it seems like it's running a lot smoother when your phone is on 95.
Right.
So sometimes you
Yeah.
just need to plug into your happiness and
Mm.
unplug from everything else.
Wow. Oh, I love that. Plug into your happiness, unplug from I love that, man. I love that. That was, I taught the whole series. I love me some me. And it's amazing that sometimes you have to fight for, you got to fight for the right, like people sometimes feel like you don't deserve, to be happy, or you don't deserve peace, or you're really not going through that. You don't really need that, all that kind of stuff. It's like you got to really fight for your happiness, for your peace. You got to protect your peace. And I'm big on people and environment. I really am big on that. I'm big on the people that are negative and haters and all that kind of stuff, man. Folks like that can kick rocks. People, you talked about not being judgmental. People that are judgmental, I don't know. We just live in such a cold world where people could be cold and cruel and dog people out and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, man, people like that need to go sit down somewhere. All this filthiness, and especially, I think this is where we each individually have to draw a line in the sand and plant our feet when people are not respecting our peace, when they're
Yeah,
not respecting our, what I'm saying, when we're trying to have a conversation and give the signs. I mean, I really think that at some time we just got to get straight out dogmatic, because if somebody's going to draw, I mean, this is the thing I was thinking about, y'all. Listen to this. We're talking about, depression. We're talking about, suicide prevention. Some of you guys are, oh my goodness. I mean, I should say some of you, I could be this way. You can be an agitator. You could be somebody who pushes people's buttons and push them and push them and push them and push them and drain on them and pull. You could be that. You could be an agitator and not really contribute to somebody's mental health. You could be contributing to their depression, contributing to their thoughts of suicide, by being this agitator. And I think that we all have to. There has to be a certain element of us being advocates for ourselves, where we have to
yeah,
demand. We have to demand in certain environments, like, hey, listen, if you can't, if you can't, if every time you come around I'm getting drained, right? Then we got to be advocates for ourselves and demand, our peace. Raquel, she put a question up there. She said, I find myself often checking on others who I know are struggling, but will get ignored. How do you get them to open up to you?
I think you have to be, the thing about reaching out. You have to be sometimes okay with knowing that you're not their go-to person, or you might not be the person that they want to open up to, and you have to be okay with that. And some things you just can't control, how other people are, how they open or who they open up to. But reaching out, doesn't hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and keep being that hand, because you never know when, somebody's going to grab it and need you to yank them back out. But
Wow. Keep being that hand. Keep being that hand. Wow. Well, listen, I appreciate you being so candid, but so solution oriented, so transparent, walking us through your experience. This is what helps. This is what helps. There are people that are going through and dealing with issues, and some of them don't even know how to express what they're going through. And I think that you've helped a lot of us actually be able to kind of wrap our head around it and express. And I love the fact that as a young man, you're saying, hey, God got to be your number one, because this is the reality, that has to, he has to be the foundation. The late great Bishop Holcomb talks about him being the beauty and the boundary and he has a whole saying, but he has to be the base and the circumference. He has to be everything. He has to be every aspect of it. He has to be the top and the bottom, the sides. He has to be. He can't be the last resort, right? And I think that sometimes, when we talk about mental health and we talk about depression, I can say this for myself. Let me use myself as an example. I've been there. I can say that I've been at those places. I've been in those dark places. But to be honest with you, there were things that I did to get myself to that place. And I just got to be totally honest and transparent. Now, you didn't get yourself injured, right? That was different. But there's a lot of us that are watching right now, to be honest with you, that some of us just make some bad decisions and we end up in these places. Anytime I ended up in a dark place, I got to be honest with you, nobody took me there. I took myself there. And so if we can, just like, just like we try to do preventive medicine and this and that, man, if we could prevent some of these things and some of these places and going to some of these places, then we have to. We got to do our part. And that's some of the practical stuff you were talking about. Unplugging, right? Separating it, do whatever, find your place. What do you love to do? And I'm looking, we got mamas on here, we got wives on here, we got leaders on here, people that are so used to being everything to everybody. Listen, you have got to get take care of yourself. Because the reality is, it's like when your phone is, like you said, your phone on 5%, and somebody want to use your phone, right? It's like, I barely got anything left. And that's just how life is. You be on 5% and everybody's still trying to use you, right? And it's like, you got to recharge yourself. So let me ask, are there any last things that you'd like to share with people? There are some people right now that are watching this or that will see this, or there are people on here that are hearing this that are living with people that are depressed, that are living with people that have already talked about committing suicide. Any last things you want to just kind of share with any of us before we have you go back to the green room?
No, I mean, just trust God to see you through. And I could plug the shirt, Helinski's Hope. Tyler's family started a foundation after he passed called Helinski's Hope, where they try to fight for mental health advocacy in sports and just in life in general. So you can go follow them on any social media. They're always posting stuff on social media about, educating people on it. They're always going to different schools and different places and hosting events and virtual stuff, because COVID and everything. And then another side I like on Instagram is the Depression Project. They are constantly posting different Instagram wheels of information and help on how to combat depression with, different things, and also how to help others. They're always posting. I posted one today. That was like the five different people to look out to help. So different
And
stuff like that.
say that again. What is that on Instagram? Say it again.
I think it's
You said
the Depression Project, I believe.
the Depression Project. Yeah.
Let me look
So
right
that's
here.
another one. Depression Project. And then also
Real Depression Project.
Real Depression Project. Okay, that's something on Instagram. And so you said they're posting stuff. You posted stuff there. Okay. Also the suicide prevention hotline. If maybe we can, if we get somebody could put that on here as well.
Yeah. So yeah, just I mean, and then being the person going through it, like I said, find your aces and find your, your people that will, help you unconditionally, and then helping, the reverse side, be that unconditional love for, people going through things. So
yeah. Wow. Well, listen, son, I appreciate you, man. Love you dearly.
love you too.
I really am inspired by what you do. Watch how you work hard. Looking forward to some things that are right around the corner. You know what I'm saying, some things that are going to be part of that's your payday, and it's the first level of your payday. So you have shown us how to fight. You've shown us how to overcome. You've shown us how to overcome some very difficult moments. The Bible says we overcome the devil by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. You've had a test, and you've come over so much, man. And we've been inspired by your testimony, and it's just been absolutely incredible. And so just looking forward to even greater days. You've done some great things, but it's going to be even greater moving forward, and we're excited about it. So thank you for coming on the last couch time for this 2021 season. Glad to end it with you, man. And those of you guys, you can see the information about Helensky Hope. That's Tyler Helensky's parents started that organization. They really were committed to not having anybody go through what they went through. What Tyler went through, what they went through as a parent. They didn't want any athletes' parents to be called and saying, "Hey, your son just committed, your daughter just committed suicide." So Helensky's Hope, Real Depression Project on Instagram, the Suicide Prevention Hotline. See that 800-273-8255. Thank you for finding that. And man, there's just so much. So thank you so much for this. Continue to be an advocate for mental health. Continue to talk about it. Continue to be transparent. It really is helping people and is blessing people. So thank you, son. Love you, man.
Love you too.
So that was incredible. First of all, I just love, of course, hanging around my family, my wife, my kids. It's always a blessing, but to be able to talk to my son about these things, for this to be such an important thing to him, for him to have experienced so much personally, losing a friend to suicide, those different types of things. This was very important, very helpful. I just want to encourage you all out there to, number one, trust God, like he said. If this, you got to understand, listen to this. This is what I was going to say. Listen to me. Stress and anxiety is such a normal part of life. Such a normal part of life that Jesus had to say, be anxious for nothing. He had to tell us that. It is stress and anxiety is such a normal part of life. The Apostle Paul had to talk about casting all our cares on him because he cares for us. So you got to understand that that stress is a normal part of life. And the only way, I'm going to tell you, the ultimate way beyond to get past the stress, to get over it, to be at a place is by trusting in the Lord. I all of you that are watching, that are listening, I need you to understand that. Yes, I do believe you can go to therapy and counseling. I believe that. I support that wholeheartedly. I believe getting connected to these organizations, but it has to start with God has to be the Alpha and the Omega. He has to be the bookends for everything that you do. And the Bible says that he will keep us in perfect peace when our minds are stayed on him. And so even during the most difficult times, the difficult moments, you got to understand that the pressure and the stress and the depression and the suicidal thoughts, I've been through all that stuff. I've dealt with all that stuff. And for me personally, a lot of it was when I took my mind off of Jesus. Just like Peter, when we all heard the story when Jesus walked on the water, right? And Peter As long as he focused on Jesus, he was walking on water. He was doing the impossible. But then he said he saw the waves boisterous. He got his attention off of the answer and the solution. He got his attention off the only solid thing on that water and began to look at the inconsistency and look at the movement of the water, the waves, all that kind of stuff. You got to understand that when we get in a place of hopelessness, we begin to look at everything other than the solution. We begin to think about this, that, the economy, the coronavirus. Can I wear a mask? Can I not wear a mask? Who's in the White House? All those different types of things. God never intended for us to trust in all of that. And when we trust in those different types of things, it makes life difficult. So when we are fighting stress and the waves and the wind, our foundation, our rock, our bookends, our help has to be Jesus. We trust the Lord. We do the practical things, the exercise, the diet, like Toria told us a few weeks ago. Remove the stressors. Some of y'all got friends that get on your doggone nerves. And to be honest with you, they're not benefiting you. They're no good to you. Unless God tells you that you're in their life for a reason, you may have to disconnect from them for a while. Some of you are stressing on this. Some of you are on jobs that you have no business on. Stressing you out. Stressing you out. And it's time for us to protect our peace because we only got one life, one body. We give that thing up. We're no good to anybody. And it's difficult for you to be a counselor and a supporter of somebody else when you are so fragile mentally that you feel like you're about to lose your mind and have a nervous breakdown. Get your peace. Protect your peace. Protect your health. Get the help that you need. And my goodness, if you are thinking about ever hurting yourself, ever checking out, you call somebody, you call a member of this church, you call myself, somebody, get connected with somebody. We got, I'm saying ministers, elders, ministers on this as well. People are here to support you. You got the suicide hotline. Please, 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 please. Before you make a step towards checking out, there are people that absolutely love you and that are here for you. You are not by yourself. And as long as you're breathing, there's always an opportunity for a turnaround. There's always a next level. There's always an up. The lower you go, and when you hit rock bottom, understand that there is always an up. And the Lord will help you. People will help you. Listen, we don't need to be losing people to suicide. We don't need to be standing over another casket of another person that checks out of here. Please, I'm like the Apostle Paul. I'm begging you. Get the help that you need. Talk to somebody. We love you dearly. And we're here to support you. So I'm so grateful for those of you that will carve out some of your Friday night and would allow this time together. At the very least, if you got some direction and some help, make sure that you can help somebody else. And I hope that it's helping you that are watching to lift you up. We're at the end of Mental Health Awareness Month. And just because Mental Health Awareness Month is about to end doesn't mean that we stop focusing on our mental health. Just know as a ministry, know as a pastor, I'm here. Love you. My wife, Lady Jen, loves you as well. We're here to support you and help you through and help you get over because God has a plan, a purpose, and a destiny for your life. He has things for you to do, things for you to accomplish, and he is the true source of joy. He has some joyful days and some joyful moments for you to experience, and we want you to experience that. I love you all. Man, bless you all. Thank you for joining all these sessions of Couch Time. And I pray that they've been a blessing to you. I've enjoyed it dearly. Grateful for all the topics and know that we're here to support you. So bless you all. Take care of yourself. Peace.